Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our Questline webinar today on how to build lasting engagement with new customers. My name is Maureen Markey, and I'm the technical producer for today's webinar. Before we begin, we want to cover just a few housekeeping items. To the left of your screen are multiple application widgets you can use. Most of the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most of your desktop space. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A widget, which is directly below the presentation window. We will try to answer all questions during the webcast, but if a more in-depth answer is needed or we run out of time, they will be answered later via email. Some networks may cause slides to advance more slowly than others, so logging off your VPN is recommended. If your slides do fall behind, pushing F5 on your keyboard will refresh the page. If you do experience any other disruptions during the broadcast, please use the Q&A widget as well for any technical questions. We'll be sending everyone a follow-up email within the next few days, which will include a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation and the playback link to the recording of today's webinar. We will also be conducting poll questions during the presentation and would greatly appreciate your participation. Please be aware that you are not the only participant today, though. The names of the other attendees are not being shown to you for privacy. Now let me introduce today's host. Mike Carter is a senior engineer for Questline. Mike has a bachelor's in engineering and an MBA degree from The Ohio State University. He is also a certified energy manager. At Questline, Mike writes articles for newsletters, answers Ask an Expert inquiries, and develops webinars on energy topics. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike, who will introduce our guests and get things started for us today.
Well, thank you, Maureen, and welcome to another webinar in our Plugged In series. This month's topic is how to build lasting engagement with new customers. So today we're going to introduce the concept of Welcome Series email customer engagement. This is one aspect of digital communications, which we addressed last month in our webinar about Questline's 2021 benchmarks report. As you can see in our agenda here today, we're going to discuss key aspects of a Welcome Series, including deployment schedule, topics to cover, the benefit to customer engagement, and customer segmentation and personalization. We'll show examples from both outside and inside the utility industry. Then we're going to look at the science of making a good first impression, the value of customer touchpoints via email, and how to structure a welcome email message. And in between, you'll have a chance to answer some insightful poll questions. Now, we're going to share the answers with everyone, so be sure to participate. But before we begin, let me introduce our two speakers. Josh Hanna is Director of Business Development at Questline, working in partnership with our large investor-owned utility clients. Josh is responsible for identifying the strategic solutions based on the goals and objectives of their various program initiatives. Josh has 20-plus years of digital marketing experience, both on the client side and agency side, across numerous sectors, including retail, healthcare, financial services, and utility. Danny Codella is data evangelist for Sigma Computing, and Danny helps people across industries understand and unlock the power of data. Prior to Sigma, Danny led content marketing for Reich, one of the world's leading collaborative work management platforms. His innovative approach to email marketing has earned him a place as one of the top-ranking email marketing influencers to follow by Campaign Monitor and Atomic Reach. He's also a regular contributor to Content Magazine, one of Silicon Valley's top creative magazines. I'm going to launch our first poll question for today. And the question is, how satisfied are you with your energy utilities digital relationship with new customers? We're giving you 5 choices, all the way from not satisfied at all to extremely satisfied, and a few other choices in between. So pick the one that best fits your level of satisfaction today with your digital relationship with new customers. We appreciate you answering our polls, and here in a minute, after I feel everyone's contributed, I'm going to be sharing those results. We'll take a look at it. So we're getting quite a spread of answers there, a range of people in terms of their satisfaction level with that digital relationship with their customers. Again, this is the first of 4 polls. We'll have 3 more. And let me go ahead and share the results. Looks like most of you have answered this. That's going to answer. And as you can see here, most of you are moderately satisfied, but the great majority of you, about 80%, are either moderately or less than moderately satisfied. So hopefully you've come to the right place today. So now let's hear from our first speaker, Josh Hanna. So Josh, go ahead and take control.
All right, thank you, Mike. Appreciate the introduction. Looks like we've already got some great engagement with the poll question, and just want to thank everybody for attending today. I appreciate the opportunity to present some more information about how to build those digital relationships with customers. And one of the ways that we do that is through, as Mike mentioned, through welcome emails, through email messaging, also through segmentation and personalization within those emails. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about those, give you a brief overview, talk about some of the benefits of why we would want to do that, and some data that kind of backs up that why. So, you know, as Danny's going to talk about a little bit later, there's nothing like making a really good first impression. And with a welcome email, that's just that. It's a really great way to say hello, to thank that customer for signing up for service, to acknowledge them, and to also be able to kind of share a little bit more about your utility, about your organization, about those offers and promotions that you might be running at that time. So what's not surprising, at least in my mind, is that nowadays, you know, people are really expecting to hear from various organizations. If you think about the other conversations that are happening outside of the utility industry, be it with retail or services like an airline, you know, there's a lot of loyalty programs out there. Folks are signing up for those. And so there's already an expectation that if they sign up to receive something from you, they expect to hear from you. So it's a really good stat. I think the obvious, you know, maybe not so obvious, but a good example of that is, you know, imagine yourself shopping, you're shopping on an online retailer, you're on their homepage and up pops an offer, you know, get 20% off your next purchase if you either, you know, give us your email address or sign up for email messages or perhaps join their loyalty program. And it's a pretty compelling offer. So you're going to go ahead and accept that. You're going to give them your email, sign up for that program. And you know, you already know that, you know, within minutes, if not seconds, you're going to have an email from that company saying, first of all, thank you. And here's your promo code to go use when you go shopping the next time. So again, just an illustration of how it is kind of a norm now. It's not an anomaly that folks want to hear from you. So how do we take that, you know, that kind of first foundational step beyond the welcome email? How do we kind of continue that conversation? Well, that's where the welcome series really comes in, right? It's a series of communications beyond that first welcome, and it's, you know, it's an opportunity to continue that dialogue, to really kind of insert yourself and become that trusted advisor by sharing information that's important to them, that's relevant, and that's going to be helpful for them as they move forward. So the types of content that we want to kind of focus on when we think about a series like this, as you can see, there's some examples here. You know, there's the initial welcome message, there's billing and payment information. These are all the topics that are listed here perform really, really well from an engagement standpoint. So that's why they're highlighted here. One additional topic that I might mention here is the idea of a anniversary email, right? So maybe it's at the tail end of your series and it's a year out, but it's a really great way to circle back and, again, say thank you for being a customer. You've had a year to really get to know them, to gain further data, understand what their needs are, what they've signed up for, perhaps what they haven't. And that's a great way to just say, you know, happy anniversary. You know, here's an incentive to maybe sign up for paperless billing. We noticed that you haven't signed up for that, so here's a great way to kind of encourage that. So a kind of a deeper dive on one of these topics I like to talk about is the billing and payments email, because that is one of our best performing topics out of all of those. And it's usually the second message that goes out. And that is an opportunity for you to be really proactive, to answer questions that they don't even know they have yet, right? So the last thing we want is for the first interaction from you after they sign up for service is to get your bill in the mail. So this is where we can provide really good information about, you know, what to expect when you get your bill, perhaps how to read it, options on how to pay your bill. You know, there's a lot of great online options for online bill pay, sign up for auto pay. And again, another place where you can encourage maybe signing up for paperless. So again, great. These are some great topics to think about. We need to make sure that they're going to align with your overall content strategy. But one thing we do know is that when you're developing that list of priorities and messages that you want to get out, you want to make sure that you put the most important information in the beginning and the middle of the series. We do see a little bit of drop off in engagement towards the end of the series. So just a thought there. I'm going to keep going. The benefits of the series, there's a number of benefits that we can highlight, right? And I think, I'm not going to read word for word all these. I will call out that, increasing credibility and really establishing yourself as that trusted advisor is really important. We saw that a lot last year with everything that went on. There was so much, there was a hunger for information, and a lot of folks were looking to their utility to get information about safety, about what to do, what's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to pay my bill. How do I deal with that? So it's important to kind of establish that relationship up front. Another really important one that I like to think about, and it does come from a bit of an e-commerce background, is this, incentivizing customers to check out your marketplace. Really interesting stat here. In a recent survey, customers were asked if they were aware of their utilities marketplace and if they had bought a product. Well, 56% of those customers said they didn't even know that there was a marketplace at all. So to me, that's a remarkable stat. It's really interesting. And again, that just kind of reflects back on how do we get the word out early on in that relationship so that they're aware. So the other really important part about this is that this isn't a templated cookie cutter approach. This is a customizable approach where we want to sit down with you and partner with you to understand what your goals and objectives are, what are the outcomes that you want to achieve, and then we craft that strategy, that content strategy, the design, the content based on those goals and objectives. So I just wanted to make sure that I called that out, and I am going to keep going. So why do we do this? What are some of the results that we see? Well, first I'm going to talk about outside industry data. So these are the results we're seeing. As I mentioned, those outside conversations, those other things that are going on in the marketplace. This is one example of a retailer who experienced 51% lift in revenue just by going from a single welcome email, to implementing a welcome series. So really important. That's huge from a revenue standpoint to think about what they were doing. And in that particular instance, this is really about building that relationship. So it's not a giving an offer, come in and shop one time and then never see you again. This is, I've established a relationship, so I keep coming back to you for other needs that I have. So in addition to that, we have a really nice open rate with 52%. It's very close to what we have from a welcome series perspective. And the big one here, 80% of customers, I know I'm going to drill this, I don't want to go on and on about it, but 80% of customers really expect to receive welcome emails after they've signed up. So just again, reiterating, it's not, it's happening outside of the utility space, and it's important to think about for us in the utility space. With that said, here's some of the high-level stats that we get from our welcome series that we've implemented. So 51% are opened. That's a huge number, and we consider that 28% is our benchmark for emails overall. When you talk about CTOR at 21, almost 22%, that's against the benchmark of almost 5%. So these are huge from an overall benchmark perspective. These are big numbers. Again, with CTR, and that's the one, I really look at that one because that one we know we're taking action. Your customer is doing something you're asking them to do, whether it's clicking through to another experience, opting into something. That's an important stat. That being at 11.2% versus 1.4 or 1.5%, that's a big gap there. So that's really encouraging. You can kind of see that success. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, kind of some things that we can do to ensure that continued success. But one thing I want to talk about real quick before we get there, is some of the strategies that we employed to make sure that we get those stats that we're looking for, to get those outcomes. And that's around segmentation and personalization. So when we think about a new customer, we have to understand who they are. Are they, is it a residential customer? And if they're residential, are they a homeowner? Are they a renter? What's their environment? Are they in a multi-unit complex? Like we want to understand what their environment is, so we are offering up the right content and information. Same goes with business and with folks who are new movers, relocating, same type of thing. So we want to encourage a segmentation strategy, and I'll dive in a little bit deeper on all three of those in a bit. The other topic is around personalization, and that, you know, I think in the old days it was like personalization meant, you know, you put their name on the email, and it's like, it's not about that. It's really understanding the individual, who they are, and there's a lot of talk about 360-degree view of the customer and things of that nature, and this is where personalization comes in. So I mentioned that anniversary email a few minutes ago, and that's where this really comes into play. So, you know, from a customer experience standpoint, what are they telling us? What are they saying they want to hear? What information do they need? And really crafting those messages at the individual level to make sure that we are indeed delivering that information. So moving on to just residential, as I mentioned, we want to think about what type of home are they in and what kind of environment. And these are some good examples of the content we might highlight, right? So again, you know, emphasizing my account or paperless billing, you know, from a community involvement standpoint, what are you doing as a community or for the community? So an example here, I live in Ohio. AEP is my utility provider. And, you know, I know in recent news, they've joined a coalition of a number of other IOUs that are creating a electric highway coalition, which is really building the infrastructure needed to help folks get from, you know, say Cleveland to New Orleans without having to be worried about finding a charging station on the way down. So they're shifting the mindset here of, you know, we know that folks are interested in electric vehicles, but the next step is, how do I ensure that folks can get where they want to go? So that's one example, or some examples for residential. From a business perspective, again, a little nuance, little different things that we might want to highlight. Easy bill management, prepare them if there's, you know, if there's potential for an outage, make sure they have the information they need. And with business, you know, from a segmentation standpoint, we have a very good idea from a commercial and industrial standpoint, but when you start to look at small, medium-sized businesses, they're a little tougher to identify in terms of what type of business they are. Are they a small boutique retailer? Are they an ice cream shop on the corner? You know, they're going to have different needs for different information. So we want to help them. We want to help to identify those types of businesses. And if you already have that data, that's great. But if not, we have ways of helping to identify those folks. It's, you know, again, it's that customer experience of reaching out to them, asking them to kind of self-segment and provide us with that additional information so we can further customize that information that we're going to be sending out to them. From a new mover perspective, you know, again, some different topics or different highlights that we might want to talk about. And again, this could be either, you know, a residential mover or a business mover. But this, you know, this audience, this is about re-engaging. This is about reconnecting with them and reestablishing that conversation, right? So they might have been a customer for years, but we haven't really gotten much engagement from them because they just pay their bill. They don't really pay attention to the communications that are going out. But this is our chance to kind of re-engage, get them back in the fold, and start that dialogue with them. So this is a slide I think is really important. If this is the only thing you take away from what I have to share today, I think this is the most important slide, at least focus group of one here. You know, we call anybody who is engaged with the Welcome Series, we call them a graduate. And we know that Welcome Series graduates, they engage with future communications at a 30% higher rate. So that's pretty significant. If you think back to what I mentioned about folks who don't realize there's a marketplace, right? Think about all the programs, the promotions, EV adoption, all of those efforts that you were making. If you could imagine a 30% lift across the spectrum of all of those programs, that's pretty compelling to me. And then if you kind of take it another step further and think about conversion, that's again pretty interesting to me. So I have probably flown through this, but I am going to take a break, take a breath, and I'm going to have Mike go to our next poll question.
Thank you, Josh. Our next poll question here is another satisfaction question. The question is, how satisfied are you with your energy utility's ability to convert new customers to e-bill, my account sign up, or other services? So it's all about conversion. How satisfied are you with your utility's ability to convert customers to these type of products and services? You have your normal 5 choices there. I'm going to go ahead and give you a chance to input your answers. While you're doing that, let me remind you, if you have any questions about what Josh just shared, or the Welcome Series product, or just customer engagement in general, click on the question mark icon box on the left. That's our Q&A text box. Just type in your questions. I know some of you have started that already. Appreciate that. And we'll be getting to those. We're going to be taking a session at the end here answering your questions. So let's see if everyone's finished here with this particular poll question. In fact, most of you have answered. I'm going to go ahead and share the results here. So a little bit different than our first poll. You are either moderately or very satisfied in almost 80% of the answers. So looks like you're pretty confident about that ability to convert customers. So with that, Josh, why don't you go ahead and share with us some examples of outstanding, world-class Welcome Series emails.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I've got a few from outside the industry I'd like to share, and then a couple of our existing clients that have current programs running that I'll talk through. So the first here is Walgreens. I know on my screen that's pretty hard to read. I'm not sure about your screen, but this is a nice example. It's really, it's a nice design, nice creative, not big on copy, and it's really focused in on the 3 things that they know their customers are interested in, which is health, money, and time, right? There's a nice call to action, which is kind of share, learn more, take us on a tour, and again, celebrating that decision to join that loyalty program. Next one is Famous Footwear. This is, again, a nice, well-designed email. There's really nice iconography that kind of helps me navigate visually to get to the information that I want to find. I think almost more importantly, at least for me, is the offer, which is driving me back to the store, driving those conversions. So that's a nice thank you again for joining that loyalty program. And the next is Tinder. I kind of laugh about this one, but they are about building relationships. So I guess this is relevant. And I think too, this email is nice. It's designed well. It has some nice emotion to it with the gifts there. And it's very clearly laid out. So it's very clear what I can do next. I can find out what I need to do, whether it's, getting notifications or filling out the rest of my profile, or just, right off the bat getting started with that top call to action. So again, some nice examples. From inside the industry, we have a long-term partner with Avista. They've been a partner of ours for, I think, 16 plus years, and they're a wonderful partner. They came to us a while ago, and I talked a bit earlier about goals and objectives and outcomes, and specifically what they were looking for was a way to improve their customer relationships, right? So we created a welcome series across a number of segments, across new customers, new movers, business customers, and business movers. And they have seen some really nice results. I'm going to share it. This is a little, unfortunately, this is kind of cut off, but these all look almost identical, right, at first glance. But it's really about the detail and the way that we've customized each one of these. So the new customer versus a new business customer are very different in terms of the language we use, the headlines, the calls to action, and the various programs that we're promoting. So again, I apologize, that's kind of cut off so you can't see what's going on below the fold there. But again, a really nice results so far. They actually have a 61.1% open rate for new customers, and they enjoy a 44.6 open rate for movers. So well above and beyond even our average for Welcome Series. So very successful, really nice results with them. And again, great partner, and glad we got to share that a bit about their success. Next up is AEP SWEPCO. SWEPCO is based in, I believe, Louisiana, and they are one of AEP's operating companies. And like Vista, they had a very specific goal in mind, a very specific outcome, and they came to us, and they had seen some of the the success of the programs that we were running for AEP Ohio, as well as PSO, and they wanted to try it out for themselves. And so we created a welcome series for them, which, again, I believe it started in 2018, and since that time, they've seen a rise in JD Power Score of 47 points, which is very nice. In addition to that, overall communication score has risen by 95 points. So we've received word from our clients; they're very happy with those results. And it was noted that, again, in spite of everything that went on in 2020, we're still seeing a lift year over year in those results. So it's a nice outcome. And to share a bit about kind of what those look like, those are kind of small, but and again cut off, but this is more of the spectrum of the series. So on the far left is your welcome to AEP SWEPCO, that welcome message, and then following that up with some information about bill and payments. Again, what are my payment options? Can I sign up for auto pay? How do I sign up for e-bill? Those types of things. Following that up with opt-ins to get mobile text alerts for when there's an outage, which obviously is a really nice thing to have to avoid those massive calls to the call center if there is an outage. And we just had one, I think last week we had one here in Columbus, and I got my text and like, nothing to worry about, we'll have power soon, so very good. Last there is the last in the series, which is all about their energy efficiency and really educating the customer on how they can help save themselves some money by adopting some of those energy saving or energy efficiency programs. So I think that's the last of it for me. I just wanted to again say thank you to everybody for your attention. It was a lot of fun to present this to you. I also want to thank Avista and AEP SWEPCO for their permission to allow us to share some of these results. So again, thanks everyone, and I'm going to turn it back to Mike for another poll question.
Well, thanks, Josh, for sharing those insightful comments about Welcome Series customer engagement. So our third poll question here today, it's not about satisfaction, you'll be happy to hear, but it is, what does your energy utility struggle with the most when communicating with new or moving customers? And we have several choices here. Is it email design and copy, really crafting the message? Is it email deployment, getting that message out the door? Is it timeliness of outreach? That's kind of a when question. Maybe it's strategizing and planning, which might include your decisions about segmentation and personalization that Josh talked about. Or maybe it's reporting metrics. What's important in communication performance? And we actually have a last choice, which could be other. So appreciate you giving us your feedback there. It's next to last here. You only have one more to go, so I appreciate your participation. And again, just remind you, if you have any questions, click on the question mark icon box on the left, type those in, and we'll get to those here in just a little bit. So where's the struggle? Where's the difficulty when communicating with new or moving customers? You have the 6 choices actually there. And you're still pretty active. We'll give you just another couple seconds here. I want to keep on time as best we can. And let me go ahead and share then the results we have with everyone attending today. All right, so it looks like strategizing and planning is number 1, followed closely by email deployment. And the others all got a vote, but they're a little less of a struggle for you. So strategizing and planning and email deployment would be the top 2 there. All right, well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Danny. So Danny, go ahead and take control of the presentation.
All right. I hope that you were taking notes during Josh's portion of the presentation. That was really great information. I come from the world of Silicon Valley, so outside of your industry. My background is in organizational psychology, so I'm happy to add some additional perspectives. Hope you find it useful. There's a saying that you can never get a second chance to make a good first impression. And we all go through great lengths to make great first impressions, right? We wear nice clothes, we stand up straight, we give a firm handshake, we maintain eye contact, because a first impression can mean everything. It can mean the difference between getting a job or not. It can mean the difference between making a friend, securing a deal. So it's no different for a company. It applies to both products and companies. Our opinions of a company are formed within a split second. And that initial impression, whether it's positive or negative, shapes our entire experience moving forward. That's why you see product companies that are investing so much more into the unboxing experience, because they know that it will color the entire experience that that person has with that product. So when our prospects, our clients, our colleagues, our customers, if they view us through a skewed lens, we may never have the opportunity to change that perception of who we are and the value that we bring. And studies have shown that even when people learn new facts, they can't easily dispel that negative first impression. And that's pretty negative. I mean, one negative impression, it takes 12 positive impressions after that to make up for just one negative one. And that's hoping that you retain that person as a customer. After one negative experience, 51% of people will never do business with that company again. So it really matters. And it's extremely expensive, I'm sure that you'll know this, to get a new customer. It's 25 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to keep an existing one. So it's helpful to really talk about why first impressions matter so much. It has more to do with our biology than you might think. Humans are cognitive misers. And what I mean by that is that we expend only the minimal amount of mental energy needed to reach a conclusion about something. And our physiology has a lot to do with that. Over 50% of our brains are dedicated to the processing of visual information. And that's astounding, because only 8% is dedicated to our sense of touch and only 3% for our sense of hearing. And so the reason for that is it's a survival mechanism. We're constantly scanning our environment, evaluating new information, new stimuli, and any discrepancies, any things that don't look right, all of that triggers alarm bells to go off, and we avoid that thing. It's a threat to us now. And so that matters when we're starting a relationship with a company. Also, the sequence at which we encounter new information really matters. There was a study done by the University of Indiana, and things that we hear first, that benefits from the primacy effect. Basically, that information is stored in our long-term memory. And it makes sense, right? Because if we're going to hear a sequence of information, what's said first usually impacts the rest of the series. So our brains, we commit that to that long-term memory. And then things that we hear last benefit from what's called the recency effect. And you might have heard that we can store about 7 things in our short-term memory. That's true. That's why phone numbers in this country are 7 digits. Things that benefit from the recency effect, that's stored in short-term memory. So things that we hear in the middle, we don't really remember too well. And so this applies to everything. This applies to the contents of an individual email, but it also applies to the series itself. You want to have that most important information at the beginning or the end, or preferably both, because those are the parts of a sequence that we really understand and remember the longest. We're also governed by our emotions much more than we realize. 95% of purchasing decision takes place in the subconscious mind. And I know what you might be thinking, that might be for impulse purchases or lower ticket items, but something like choosing a utility provider, that's not an emotional decision at all. Well, you'd be surprised. Take a look at this image here of brands that have the highest level of emotional attachment from their customers or clients. Would you have thought that brands like Cisco and Accenture and Deloitte would top that list? And look at what's at the bottom of the list. Brands like McDonald's, Target. You see, there have been lots of studies done. There was a recent one done actually by Google, and they found that the B2B buyer, the person that you would think is the least emotional, is actually the most emotional, much more emotionally tied to their service provider, their vendors, than a B2C customer. And the reason for that is simply that there's more on the line. If I buy the wrong kind of shampoo or something, I've wasted what, $9 or something like that. But if I am making a major purchasing decision, if I am a B2B buyer and the purchasing decision is going to affect my team, a department, well, that's an incredible amount of pressure. So even as a utility provider, you can have an emotional connection with your customers, and it's important to realize that. And it pays to invest in those first interactions. Nearly a quarter of customers can be retained for up to 2 years just based on a pleasant and positive onboarding experience. So it's an investment that pays dividends. So as a service provider, the way that you welcome your customers is their first glimpse into the quality of service that you will provide post-sale. And with all of the restrictions that COVID has brought upon us, many of those interactions where you might have been able to build a positive impression previously are just simply not possible anymore. Your only channel may be email. So a welcome email series may be absolutely critical for establishing the relationship. So let's get right down to it. Let's talk about the welcome email and the welcome email series. As Josh brought out earlier, 74% of people actually expect a welcome email. So don't feel like you're bugging people or you're doing something that's needless. People are waiting for this. And the reality is that initial welcome email may have the highest open and click-through rates of any email that you ever send them. So it's important to get it right. According to Experian, welcome emails typically have 4 times the number of opens and 5 times the number of click-throughs as a standard marketing email. And subscribers that read at least one welcome email, they read 40% more content from that sender over the next 180 days. So it's a huge opportunity. Momentum is high. Your brand is top of mind for people. You have their attention. So what do you do with that? Well, surprisingly, most brands do nothing with that. According to a study by Ciceron, only 39% of brands even send a welcome email. 41% of brands don't send a welcome email in the first 48 hours, and 27% send 0 emails in the first 3 weeks. Now, are any of you in sales or have a sales background? If you are, you probably know that timing is everything. Time is money. Sales is all about striking while the iron is hot, isn't it? Well, when you have someone's attention, you really need to capitalize on it. So a lot of brands, even if they do send a welcome email, it's usually just a receipt that you're now in their database. And maybe that's good for them. It's not good for the person reading the email. So let's talk about the 6 components of an effective welcome email series. Number 1, clear sender name and email address, subject line, and pre-header text. So I'm combining all of these things because really altogether they influence the open of an email. And so let's talk about what each of these components is here. So sender name on the left there, the subject line in the middle, and the pre-header text, sometimes called the snippet, on the right. So that's that little kind of preview of what the email entails. And so if you use Gmail actually arranges things in this order from left to right, kind of most important to least important. And so just kind of a little tidbit for people that are not involved in email marketing, that pre-header text, you can actually change that to be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be a preview of the first few lines of your email. You can be intentional with that. It's really fun when you make that play off of the subject line. So you really want to be strategic with these 3 elements because these are the most important things that influence an open. So the sender name, if that email is just coming from Acme Energy, well, that's kind of sterile and impersonal. So much better if it comes from a person. But on the other end of the spectrum, if it just comes from Bob Smith, if I don't know who Bob Smith is, I'm probably not going to open it. So I really love what Asana has done here. They have a person's name, Hillary, at Asana. So if I get this, oh yeah, I remember I signed up for Asana. Yeah, I remember this. The absolute worst, in my opinion, is when you get an email from a no reply at whatever. Isn't that just kind of, it's so impersonal. It kind of already kind of puts you off, right? No reply. I don't want to hear from you, but you have to read this. Terrible. So really love what Asana has done here. The subject line is the second tool that we can play with. So for the first email in a welcome series, I wouldn't get too creative with that. You know, the people are still kind of getting to know you. They're building a relationship with you. So, you know, welcome to Acme Energy, welcome to the family. Something like that would work really great. Emojis are fun. They add a little bit of color that can help you stand out in the inbox. I wouldn't overdo it though. And then there's the pre-header text. That's extra real estate. That's extra character count where you can say something creative or emphasize, add some additional color or details that you didn't get to say in your subject line. Another thing that you want to do is you always want to test and send out your emails because they look different on different devices. According to Campaign Monitor, a popular email service provider, or ESP, more people open emails on a mobile device than they do on a desktop. And so truncation happens on mobile devices. It affects how subject lines and sender names and pre-header text is displayed. So on the left, we have the original email, and on the right is with the truncation. So on the left, original sender name, Acme Toys, products for foolproof fun. We see that gets truncated to Acme Toys, products for fool. That's kind of weird. Or like the subject line, you know, the weather is getting hot. We've got loads of pool toys on sale. Well, that gets truncated to the weather is getting hot and we got loads of poo. Not the first impression you want to make. So another thing that influences an open that you want to consider is the time of day, when or even what day an email is sent. In the case of the initial email, you want to send that as soon as someone signs up for your service while you're top of mind. But with those subsequent emails, you can be strategic. Mondays and Fridays are kind of universally bad. Mondays, we're kind of coming back from our weekends. We're focused on our work week. Fridays, we're kind of checked out. We're thinking about our weekend. So midweek tends to do best. Time of day matters as well. Now, maybe you're like me. When I wake up first thing in the morning, I delete every single email that's not relevant to what I'm doing that day or personalized to me because I need to get started on my workday. But after my inbox is cleared around 9 o'clock or so, and I get an email from something that is mildly interesting, well, I'm more likely to open it then because I've gotten rid of all that stuff. I've gotten started on my day, and now I'm more receptive to a new message. So think about that. And many email service providers let you kind of stagger your sends across time zones so that you can send people emails at the precise right time that works best for them. But sending across time zones, that's only one aspect of personalization. Josh brought out a couple others, using people's names in the subject line or in the body of the email. And that's really our point number 2 with a great welcome email, personalization. Emails with personalized subject lines, they are 26% more likely to be opened. So you could use someone's name, their first name, their last name. But like Josh brought out, that's only just the beginning. That's scratching the surface is using someone's name. You can personalize by geography, by job title, by job function, purchase behavior, interests, birthdays, anniversaries, device, position in the customer journey. All of that can be used to send a more tailored, personalized message. And when it comes to personalized welcome emails, you really can't beat Banner Bear. With some clever coding, their welcome email has today's date, it has the username, and it has a user photo. So we talked about buyers being emotionally connected to your brand. Look at the relationship building that they're doing right off the bat. I mean, incredibly personal. This is an amazing email. The third component is to say thank you. It seems so obvious, but most companies don't do it. In a subscription business model, reducing churn and maintaining the subscriber over the long term is important to your customer success, or company success, I should say. So a thank you is a good place to start. in beginning that relationship. So one great tactic is to take the letter approach. Many brands have their first welcome email sent by the CEO. Is the CEO actually sending each one of these? No, it's automated, of course, but the message can be from them, and it will make your customers feel great. So this is a great example here. This isn't exactly a welcome email, but there's a lot of lessons that we can apply from it. It's personalized. It says thank you. It's from the CEO. It's got their signature. It isn't overly produced. It doesn't feel like a marketing email. It's a little stripped back, and so it feels authentic, doesn't it? The fourth component of a great welcome series is to set expectations. Welcome emails set the tone. What should they expect next? What will you do? What do I need to look for? So in the case of a utility company, some expectations that you can set are, how often are you going to contact me? How are you going to contact me? When am I going to get my first bill? Where can I go to see my current charges? Where can I go to for help when I need it? You have the most attention that you will ever have from this person in this welcome email. So what do you want them to do with it? What is most important for them to know? What's going to keep that relationship positive? And so this is an older email from Flickr, maybe a little hard to see here, but it reminds people of their screen name and email. And I don't know about you, I sign up for stuff all the time. I kind of forget those details. So I love that they included that. It lets them know that they are going to email me when there's activity on my profile on Flickr. So great, I know when they're going to contact me. They even give me a chance to customize the emails, gives me resources I can turn to if I need help, sets me up with some actionable next steps that's going to make me successful on their platform. Everything I need to get started. So this is a great example. 5, give rewards. This might be kind of harder to do as a service provider, easier for a consumer goods company, product company. But if you can offer any type of reward, a 10% discount on their first month, just some sort of bonus, it works great. Rewards are unexpected. They show the recipient that you value their patronage. It automatically adds value to your email. And that's something that a lot of brands really kind of miss out on. Because email is so easy to send, they just send anything. They don't stop and think that each message should have value, not just for them, but for the recipient. That's how you maintain a relationship. You don't just take, you have to give, right? And now, number 6, tell me what you want me to do next. This is probably most important. The welcome email shouldn't just be a hello. It should be next steps. Do you want me to fill out my profile on your site? Do you want me to give a review? Are you looking for a testimonial? Do you need me to read something? Do you want me to download something? So decide what the best course of action is for your particular company, and then have a single call to action at the bottom that directs people to go do that. And it will be different for every company. Maybe for your company, the best thing is you want people to add a secondary payment option in case the first one fails for whatever reason. So your email could go something like, Danny, we're so glad that you signed up. We are dedicated to keeping you and your family powered on all summer so that you can enjoy some rest and relaxation. Before we let you go, can you head over to your profile page and add that secondary payment option? That way we can make sure that the lights never go off for you. We're excited to serve you. See, that's a great example of an email. Now, if we have an email series, well, we have more chances for multiple call to action. So, just a kind of a sample email kind of drip campaign here. The initial sign up, thank you for signing up, kind of lays out what you can expect in the next emails. Second email, a better profile equals better service. Can you go fill out your profile? Third email, picking energy efficient appliances is better for the environment. This can help you save. Next week, we're going to talk to you about some tips to save money. Fourth email, you fleshed out your profile, you've upgraded your appliances, you've slashed your expenses. Could you leave us a review? So it's a give, and then an ask. So a well thought out welcome email series serves a variety of purposes, builds trust, gives customers valuable information. It opens up opportunities for upsells, aids in retention, and really sets the tone for your customer relationship. For better or worse, first impressions are very hard to shake, and it's well worth investing in a welcome email workflow.
Well, thank you, Danny. That's a great justification for an investment in customer engagement and some really practical advice on implementation. So let's answer some of your questions this afternoon. And I'm going to throw the first one out to you, Josh. The question comes from Steve. What sort of a time frame are utility customers expecting to receive a welcome email? Is it same day, next day, same week, next week, et cetera?
That's a great question, actually. I would say you want to do it as soon as possible, right? While, if they've talked to an associate and kind of it's top of mind, maybe the associate even is saying, hey, by the way, we're going to be sending you an email, so keep an eye out for that. But generally, as soon as possible, certainly within 1 to 2 weeks of signing up at a minimum. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, as Danny alluded to, kind of striking while the iron's hot is important as well.
Okay. And Jason had two parts to a question, but his second part was related to this, and he asked, well, what's your timing between those messages?
Another really good question. So generally, we see kind of on average about 7 to 10 days between our email messages with Welcome Series. So that really, again, can depend on your goals and objectives and kind of what your overall strategy is. But that's kind of in general what we see. And again, if your second email in that series is about billing and payment options, you better make sure that's out before they get their first bill.
Okay. And then, again, yet another related question on the timing. Do you hold these customers who you're trying to engage with Welcome Series emails, do you hold these customers out from all other company-wide program communications while they go through the Welcoming Series or onboarding process? Or do you mix those together sometimes?
I think that's for me too, I'm guessing.
Either one, sure. And Danny, feel free to jump in any time on any of these questions.
For sure. I think, I hate to answer with it depends all the time, but it does kind of depend on your overall strategy and what initiatives you're running and the timeliness of those and things that you're trying to achieve. But I would say in general, what we want to do is kind of establish this conversation with them first, let them graduate through that series, and then start with the additional communication. So that way we've set expectations, we've kind of given them some time to get used to our communication and those things and receiving those. Again, we've established credibility. So I'm going to be, more apt to open that email because you're not wasting my time with the previous 4 or 5 that I got from you.
Okay.
Yeah, to add to that, this has been a problem at every company I've ever worked at. You have multiple departments that are sending customers emails and not necessarily coordinating. And so people are getting all sorts of emails and it's out of sequence and doesn't make sense. So one thing that I've implemented at companies I've worked at is we print out every single email we're going to send. We put it up on a board and we look at it and, does this make sense? Is this confusing? And really kind of foster that collaboration between departments because it can get pretty hectic pretty fast.
Yeah, good advice. Danny, let me start with you on this one. In the welcome emails, are you driving customers to particular product program pages on the website, or do you create a new customers, quote unquote, landing page or website that you drive them to?
That's probably going to depend on the company. I haven't created a new customer page, but I've helped them understand what is available to customers in general and kind of give them a guided tour. And so that makes a great sort of sequence for your welcome series, is kind of pointing out the different resources that are available, doing a little bit of a deep dive so that they know how to navigate your site or your portal. They can get the most value out of your service.
Okay. Another question here, we just have time for a couple more. How much time does it take to implement a welcome series program? I think that's more from an implementation standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Again, it kind of depends on the scope of the project, the level of customization, and what kind of creative design we're doing. So it could be a matter of weeks, it could be a matter of months. It just really depends on all the things that are going into that program and the overall scope.
Okay. And this question kind of relates to that as well. And how customizable is a welcome series relative to utilities, programs, and goals, et cetera?
Yeah, I have a colleague who likes to say, you know, we can be as much as you want us to be, or we can be as little as you want us to be. And it really, again, you know, if we're going to go with the more templated approach from a design of the email, then that speeds up that can kind of speed up the time frame and also reduces the cost. And Mike, I totally lost my train of thought. I apologize. Can you remind me of the specifics of the question again?
Yeah, that was just about how customizable a welcome series is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No
So from a customization standpoint, you know, again, we can start from a templated approach over to a fully, you know, start from scratch creative design, depending on what your goals and objectives are and what you want to achieve.
Okay. Well, we've come to just the last few minutes here. Let me work here one more question here. And the question here is, what's probably the biggest mistake you're seeing in emails, whether it's welcome emails or general marketing emails? And maybe Danny, you might start with that. The biggest mistake.
Yeah, a couple of mistakes I see are just not really having a clear purpose or call to action, just kind of sending emails for the sake of being in people's inboxes. I think that's a big problem. And then the second is not taking advantage of transactional emails. Those are the automated emails, is when someone makes a purpose, or they get a purchase, or they get a receipt, or they sign up for something. Like, those are very highly read emails, and that's a lot of you know, free attention to convey a message. So I'd be very intentional with those transactional emails.
Okay. Well, we've run out of time here today, so we're going to finish up with our last poll question here. And the question, of course, is a value question about this time you spent today. How useful was the information presented in this webinar? Again, 5-point scale here of response from not valuable at all to extremely valuable. And while I give you a chance to do that, let me kind of recap what we heard today. I think, first of all, we heard that welcome emails are a great way to engage customers, to build trust, increase conversions, and maybe introduce new programs and services or even upsell opportunities. We also learned that the vast majority of customers really expect to receive welcome emails, and they're going to open them at a really high rate. We also learned that segmentation and personalization maximize the impact of a welcome series. Those are two very important criteria in such a series. I think we're all impacted by Danny shared about first impressions are lasting impressions. It's really something that we just can't forget. And then finally, a couple more things. I think we saw that a clear subject line and pre-header text, etc., is really critical for obtaining an email open. It's really going to help with that open rate. And finally, we saw that setting expectations and identifying next steps, which Danny emphasized, are really important components of welcome emails. All right, let's see. Looks like most of you have jumped on that poll question. So I'm going to finish up here and just thank you, speakers, Josh and Danny, for your excellent insights from your experience with digital customer engagement. And thank you, audience, as well, for attending today and your great questions. So now let's hear some closing comments from Maureen.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. And I would like to thank all of you again for attending our webinar today. As a reminder, the presentation materials and the playback link to the recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you within the next couple of days. Should you have any additional questions or feedback, please don't hesitate to contact us. Remember to also keep May 20th open for our next webinar, where we will discuss how to segment customer communications to increase revenue and satisfaction. Thank you again for attending, and have a great day, everyone.